Good afternoon or early evening, everybody. How's it going? Hope you guys are doing well. We had another action packed day at Seahawks Training Camp today, so let's run it down. Let's round it up. Let's see what we can learn. Again, we're in pads now. People are hitting, people are colliding, people are knocking each other out. It's heating up, and we are now just 2 days away from the first preseason game, the Hall of Fame game, and we are 9 days away from the first preseason game for the Seahawks. I think we're 3 days away of the mock game, so things are heating up. And let's go over what we learned today. Now, two things first before I get into camp today. Tonight should be about 7 o'clock Pacific. We're going to do a stream here on YouTube. Going to talk about training camp so far. Going to talk about what's going on in the Seahawks world. Going to talk about everything that's going on. So stop on by tonight. Should go for like an hour, maybe a little bit more. And we'll just talk about Seahawks stuff. And I hope to see you guys there. Second thing I want to say real quick before I get into the updates. We do not have an update on K9 or Charbonnet yet. Haven't heard anything yet. Just waiting. It's possible that we don't know yet. It's possible that they just can't really say anything concrete. So give it time. But as of right now, all we know is that they're not practicing. And that's, as far as I know, all they've said. So yeah, no new updates there. We do have one injury update. Will Dissly was back in pads today, so he just misses the 1 day of training camp. There was a little bit of concern because we also had 3 tight ends in for a workout yesterday on top of Dissly missing practice, but he's back practicing today. So seems like he just got the day off, and you're going to see a lot of days off for veteran players in training camp, I think, especially someone like Dissly who has such a history of getting injured. So good news there. Dissly is back. Also good news, at least in my opinion, it's good news. Robert Cooper has re-signed with the Seahawks. This was a guy who we picked up as a UDFA. I immediately expected him to play a non-trivial role for the team in 2023 because he was the kind of player that we needed. He was the kind of big-bodied nose tackle that we needed. And then we pretty quickly released him, and we all moved on. Sounded like he just needed to get into shape. Corbin Smith kind of lays it out here. He was coming off surgery, and he needed more time to round back into shape. Looks like he has now. He's back in Seattle, and this is the kind of guy that we might need. A big-bodied nose tackle who can take up a lot of space. Especially if Monet is not going to be ready to go by week 1, which I doubt. So Robert Cooper's back. So I'm going to call that good news because Cooper was a guy who had my attention when the UDFA portion started, and I was really happy to get him. And now it looks like he's actually maybe part of our future plans. All right, a couple guys sat out training camp today, including Devin Bush. He sat out, and so did Anthony Bradford. Don't really know why. I don't believe it's any kind of a concern yet. Sometimes you just give guys the day off. Sometimes there's a minor injury that doesn't really mean anything, but you may as well give them the day off. Now, Anthony Bradford, it doesn't really matter that much either way because he's projected to be a backup. And while I think it's on the table that he would take the starting job, I think it's extremely unlikely. The Devin Bush thing is a little more interesting because Devin Bush is a guy who's going to play a decent amount this year. It's also kind of interesting because of the, I don't know if you call it a log jam, but there is a little bit of a brewing situation developing at our reserve inside linebacker spots. Obviously, Wagner's number 1, but then after that, it gets kind of interesting, right? Like Devin Bush is your presumed number 2, and then you've got guys like BBK who's back, you've got guys like John Radigan, and you've got V. Jones. And I may need to make another video discussing this in the near future. V. Jones is a guy who has gotten a lot of attention this training camp already. He's put on a little bit of weight, put on a little bit of muscle. A lot of people are pointing at him and shouting him out as being one of the guys who looks way better this year. And there's an opportunity for V. Jones. There really is, because if you're looking at our defense as a 3-4 defense, at least a decent chunk of the time, you got Wagner and Bush starting at inside, and then after that, it's wide open. You got BBK coming off that devastating injury, finally working his way back. You got John Radigan, who hasn't really played defensive inside linebacker at all. He's been a special teamer. And V. Jones. I mean, V. Jones could easily be a better option than both of those guys if he continues to build on this strong training camp so far. So V Jones is one of the kind of bottom of the roster guys who's starting to push for maybe making the 53-man roster. And if something happens, which has to be taken as a realistic possibility, Wagner's old and Bush has already been completely devastated by injuries in his career. There's a chance for V Jones to actually play this year, and if he's improved as much as people are saying, hey, it's good. It's good to have somebody in that depth room that you have some degree of trust in. So, interesting stuff there. Um, I do want to shout out this tweet real quick from Corbin. Devin Witherspoon with a great rep denying Tyler Lockett in red zone period, tight coverage, whole rep. Now, I'm not here to tell you guys to read a ton into one rep in training camp. I know that's not really gonna, that shouldn't be moving the needle that much for most people. But people are starting to buzz about this guy. And when I say buzz, I actually mean it in the negative term. I'm seeing the comments. I'm seeing, obviously, part of it was the holdout, which was fair. Like, that was absolutely fair to be a little concerned about the Witherspoon situation when he was holding out. But I definitely see some people really overreacting to him getting beat a couple times in coverage during the early part of training camp when he's already a little behind the eight ball because he missed the first 2 days. And people just kind of reading way too much into a couple of reps. So, to those of you out there who go a little bit over the top about every single rep in training camp, I don't know, maybe this will put your mind a little bit at ease. It's one rep, but it was 1 or 2 reps that got us here in the first place. So, hey, this Witherspoon guy, I don't know how this is going to play out exactly. There are some concerns with his size and him maybe getting injured in the pros. But there's very little doubt in my mind that as far as man coverage goes, he is one of the better prospects in recent memory. So I'm definitely rooting for him, of course. And hearing things like this is at least a little bit encouraging. Now, the highlight from today's training camp session was probably the one-on-ones between the offensive line and the defensive line. Yesterday was receivers and cornerbacks. Today was offensive line versus defensive line. Now, yesterday we did receivers and cornerbacks, and those are two positional groups that I think every Seahawks fan is extremely optimistic about. This one, maybe not. Our offensive line is projected to be, I think, below average this year, and our defensive line is also probably going to be below average this year. Now, OL versus DL, which is the way that it's projected in this tweet by Michael Sean Dugar, is a little bit of a misnomer because a lot of the activity was done by edge rushers who are not really part of the defensive line, but it's semantics anyway. You've got pass rushers going up against pass protectors at the end of the day. So he put together this whole thread of like 12 to 15. I'm not going to play the clips on the video, but go through this thread if you haven't seen it yet. I had a lot of fun going through it. Just watch every clip. They're all really short, really easy to digest. You get to see a bunch of our offensive linemen going up against our defensive linemen. My quick hit takes from what I heard and what I saw in this thread would be Charles Cross had 3 reps that I saw. On one, Taylor beat him to the inside. On the other 2, he looked really good. Mario Edwards actually looks good. He had a couple reps, and I thought he looked really good on both of them. Don't sleep on Mario Edwards. Damian Lewis looked good in 1 rep against Draymond Jones. I thought that Mike Morris looked a little bit rough. Not really loving what I saw from him. Derek Hall had a couple okay reps. Nothing over the top. But those are your 2 rookies, so not unexpected. Not a lot of super encouraging stuff from the backup offensive line, of course. But you would expect your defensive rushers, even your, I would say, reserve guys, like your bench guys, your second stringers, to do well against the backup offensive line. So it's much more important for those guys to be good than our backup offensive line to be good. So those are the main things that stood out to me from watching. I didn't see anything from Lucas. I saw a little bit from Cam Young. Actually had a really good rep on Oluwatimi, I think. So Cam Young actually was able to get some penetration, get to the quarterback. I'm putting quarterback in quotation marks because there is no quarterback because it's a drill. But that was cool. And that's mainly it. Go through the whole thread. Again, like I said, Michael Sean Dugar's Twitter account puts it all together. And great stuff. some reason to be encouraged. So far this training camp, there's been kind of a back and forth between the defense and the offense, but the last couple days it seems like the defense is doing a little bit better. Not that the offense has been all bad. There was a great touchdown throw to Metcalf from Gino a little earlier today in the 7-on-7s. But overall, it seems like the defense is actually doing well. Now, part of the reason why is we don't have our top two running backs, but there's been a lot of call-outs about the defense. Like another big one, Boye Mafe. Boye Mafe, if you look at his clips in these offensive line versus rusher drills, Mafe had two really nice reps. Now he is going up against backup offensive linemen, but he looks good. That's very crucial towards us being a better defense this year, I think. Very, very key that Boye Mafe builds on what he did last year significantly, I think. So the defense is actually looking good the last couple days, I think. So that's going to encourage some people. In previous years, when you think about it, in previous years, when our defense was dominating the offense in training camp, that usually was a prelude to the offense being terrible for the first month of the season. They got off to incredibly slow starts. I don't think that would be the case this year. Like, I don't see how this offense gets off to a bad start. With the way the pieces have been put together, if our offense gets off to a slow start this year, that's kind of a disaster, and it could be a season crippler. But I don't think that's what's going on here, so it's good to hear the defense is holding their own. They're getting some turnovers, which, again, I think is going to be a huge part of them keeping their heads above water this year. And that's really all I got to say. But yeah, fun one-on-one drills with offensive linemen and defensive rushers. Check it out. And that's really all I got for right now, guys. See you guys later. Go Hawks. Going to be streaming tonight on YouTube and Twitch. Hope to see you guys then. Go Hawks.